It was Mary who said yes in our name and opens that door so that God can come into our world. The last words of Mary recorded in the Gospel are those spoken at the wedding feast of Cana. Do whatever he tells you. They're the words I have written on my bishop's ring. Mary's last word is telling us to say yes to God, to life, and to love. The gospel of life is an imperative for Christ's disciples. Christ, through his church, is urging us to be defenders of life in the midst of a culture of death. The term culture of death, coined by John Paul II, is an accurate description of the drift of Western culture. Just last week, the newspapers reported a case of euthanasia in Belgium. Twin brothers, Mark and Eddie Verbessem, who were born deaf, were recently diagnosed with glaucoma, which could eventually lead to blindness. Judging their future to be too burdensome, they presented themselves at the University Hospital in Brussels, and the 45-year-old brothers were both given lethal injections. We recently managed to defeat a ballot initiative in Massachusetts that would have legalized physician-assisted suicide. The initial polls had us losing 70% to 30%. But thanks to the power of prayer, so many rosaries, hard work, and alliances with the broad coalition of hospice, healthcare workers, faith groups, disabilities people, Catholic colleges, our Knights of Columbus councils, and our priests and parishioners, along with very aggressive advertising, we actually won. It was like the race between It was like the race between the tortoise and the hare, and in our race we were the turtle that beat the rabbit. There is no doubt, however, that the next major assault on the gospel of life will come from those pushing physician-assisted suicide and euthanasia. A society that allows parents to kill their children will allow children to kill their parents. During the past 40 years, pro-life Americans have felt the frustration of being disenfranchised by an activist Supreme Court which has denied us the right to vote about abortion. Nevertheless, pro-life activists have not ceased to wage a campaign of moral suasion on campuses, workplaces, and neighborhoods. It's amazing to think that there are tens of thousands of volunteers working in some 3,000 pregnancy help centers that have provided millions of women in difficult pregnancies with invaluable help, medical, material, and spiritual. 40 years ago, when the Supreme Court handed down the second Dred Scott decision that renders unborn children unprotected by the Constitution of the United States, like people of African American descent in the days of slavery. Since 1973, there have been about 55 million abortions. That's how many people live in